Hello, hello. How's everybody doing today? I'm so excited to chat with you. Today, oh, my camera got a little crazy, didn't it? Hello. Focus, focus. Today we're going to be talking about a super fun topic. We're going to be talking about rejection. Yay! Everybody's favorite topic. But in all honesty, this is such an important topic when we are talking about starting a business, when we're talking about scaling a business, when we're talking about marketing. This comes up all of the time. And so I thought it would be an amazing opportunity just to come on and talk about it and give you guys some tips that I have on what's helped me with facing that fear of rejection. Because guess what? You're not alone. I face this fear as well, right? As I'm sure many of you guys listening do. So we're just going to really dive into what you can do if this is a fear that you have, or if it's just like a practical thing. Like, no, Abby, scared or not, it's just happening. And some of us are afraid of it happening. Some of us are living in the reality that we're getting rejected on like our pitches and things like that. So we're just going to break it down today and talk about all of that. Okay. So thank you guys for joining me today. I always love hanging out with you. Just as a reminder, we do these live streams every single Tuesday where we just come on and talk about a different aspect of your virtual assistant or freelancer business and just break down different elements. So if you guys haven't already, all of these live streams, we upload them every single week to YouTube. And so you can go to youtube.com/Abby Ashley and just, binge watch all of these live streams and all of our videos there because there's just a lot of good information. We dive into a lot inside of these live streams. So hello, everybody. Good morning. I'm seeing a lot of you guys joining us live, and I want to know, for those of you who have joined live, is this a fear that you have, right? Like, hey, let's just honesty hour here. Like, yes, Abby, this is something I struggle with. And if so, if you're willing to share, how has it impacted your business so far? Has it kept you from getting out there and getting clients? Has it stopped you from launching in general, right? Like, how is it currently impacting your business? So let me know in the comments. So what I want to dive into is, how to actually handle it, how to actually handle the fear of rejection that so many of us face. And I'm already seeing in the comments, like, yes, I'm just getting started. I'm scared as heck. Yeah, I don't look forward to this 100%. So, as we've been doing this for years and years and years, right? So, I've been training virtual assistants since 2016, and we have people who go on to have huge thriving businesses, and we have people who give up, right? I mean, that's just the reality. Not all entrepreneurs make it. And I have found that the biggest thing, honest to God, like the biggest thing that I have seen trip people up is that they let fear get in their way, which we think in the back of our minds, it's like, oh, people probably aren't successful because they don't know how to market, or they don't have enough skills, or they don't XYZ, right? They don't know how to do client calls. They have a bad website. They have bad branding. But like, in reality, aren't all of those things figure outable? Like, in reality, we can learn. Those are all practical things to learn. But fear is an emotional thing, right? It's something that comes from inside of us. It's not like an external thing to learn. How to handle it can be, I believe, learned, but it's something that comes from inside of us. And because of that, I feel like it is it's the main thing that trips people up. So knowing, number one, that you're not alone, which we'll talk about here in a second, but number two, that like, man, it is so worth it for me to figure this out, right? Because this could be the actual thing that's standing in between me, where I'm at currently, and having a thriving business, is this like fear wall. Like, if I can break this down, then whoo, not that it's 100% smooth sailing, right? But your chances of having a thriving business increase by so much. Okay. So I'm seeing you guys. I wanted to read some of these comments. I'm terrified of being rejected. I actually just today reached out to a potential client for the first time. Oh my goodness, Mia, congratulations, right? taking that bold leap. It's one of the things that that we talk about all the time here at the Virtual Savvy is be bold. Taking the first step is holding me back, fear of putting it out there. Yes, 100%. Um, so here is I don't want to give up. Yes, 100%. Okay, so let's talk about this. There's two types of fears that I feel like when we're talking about the people who, go on to have thriving businesses and the ones who kind of just fall to the wayside. The biggest thing that I find is fear that's holding them back. And it's two different types of fear, right? The number one is, oops, two types of fear. I did a typo there. It's supposed to be the fear of, let me rewrite it, failure, and the fear of rejection, right? So two types of fears: fear of failure, fear of rejection. And so we're not going to talk as much about the fear of failure, although I'll be honest, a lot of the things we're going to talk about will apply. But I really want to zero in and talk about the fear of rejection. Okay, so what happens if I launch my business and nobody's interested? What if I, put my business out to the world, and even worse than like nobody commenting or nobody becoming my client? What if I actually get like negative feedback about it, right? Or ridicule about it, even worse. Some of us have amazing support systems in place, right? We have friends and family that love us, are supporting us, are rooting us on. The reality is that some people don't have those people in their corner. And that's why we have our Savvies community, right? If you're not a part of the community, the virtualsavvy.com/community, my team can throw it in the comments. It's the most supportive community, and it's a place that you can go and be like, oh my gosh, I'm struggling with this, somebody give me feedback. And it's a place where you don't feel so alone, right? And so that's one of the things that I feel like is one of the first steps to dealing with the fear of rejection, is realizing that you're not alone in this fear, right? And we have people all in the comments saying, yep, that's me, that's me, that's me. This is a fear that I deal with. This is something that stops me in my tracks. And so one of the things that I feel like, one of the, like, how fear has its power, one of the things that makes it so powerful is that it makes you feel like you're isolated in your fear. When you feel like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm going to get rejected, that feeling of rejection, the isolating part of it is part of what makes it so scary, right? And so, number one, realizing that your fear is actually not uncommon. Like, make your fear kind of ordinary, make it kind of regular, right? It's like isn't there like a story where it's like there's a monster in the closet, and then you like, well, even if there was a monster, it's really just a friendly monster, right? Like, you make it uncommon. You make it like it's no big deal, right? Because it actually is very common. The fact that you have fear is not really that special. Like, it's one of those things that we all have it, right? And like, what it does is it devalues it, right? Like, we give our fear so much more credit than it's really worth. Like, our fear is actually not that uncommon. It's not that unique. It's not that special, which is a good thing to acknowledge, because then it devalues it, right? Not saying that your fears don't have weight, and not saying that like we shouldn't acknowledge them at all. We just should ignore them. But I think some of us need to devalue them a little bit, because the reality is that other people have them too. And if other people can work through their fears and get to the other side of that fear wall we talked about, right? Like, if here's where you're at now, and here's you having a super successful, thriving business, and the biggest wall, the biggest challenge you're going to face is fear, then realizing that other people have had that exact same wall and have gotten to the other side actually makes it so much more doable, right? And so that's one of the tools that I feel like has really helped me, is having a community of people being like, you post in our VA Savvies group, like, hey, I have my first discovery call today. I'm terrified. Has anybody else felt this way? I guarantee you're going to boom, 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 get so many other people saying, yes, me too, me too, me too. Right. And so I think just there is something powerful in realizing that you're not alone in your fear. Okay. Yes, number one. So the next part, when it comes to how to actually get over this crippling fear of rejection, and I think this is probably one of the most important. This is a journey I've personally been going on this past year, and it has helped me not just in this area of my life, but in so many areas of my life. It's helped me in the area of failure too. So let's dive into it. So number two, on how you can overcome fear, really, really, really getting secure in your identity and who you are. Okay. So, one of the things that I've been doing this past year, if you guys haven't, has anybody taken the Strengths Finders test? So there's a book, there's like Strength Finders 2.0. You can get it on Amazon. I 100% recommend it because it's honestly, it's been so transformative to me, especially this year. Like I've done it in the past and there's something about it like right now that has really, really been impactful for me. So if you've taken Strength Finders before and you know your strengths, go ahead and post them in the comments because we're going to talk about it. So, who you are. If I say, like, who we got in the comments? Let's pop over to the comments here. Sarah, Patricia, Stephanie, Nina, right? Like, Tori, if I say, who are you? Right? Some of us are going to define ourselves by our job title. I'm a virtual assistant, right? I am, I'm a mom. I am all these things. And those are great things. But at the end of the day, those are roles that you have, right? Like if you are a virtual assistant, but for some reason you decide not to be a virtual assistant anymore, or when you retire, like, does that mean like that's that you're not who you are anymore? No, it doesn't. So, like, who you are, what I believe is the God given like talents and strengths and abilities and the person that you are. And that's where Strength Finders comes into play so much. And something that I've been diving into this year is like who I am as a person is, and I'll tell you my top strengths, okay? See if I can remember them all in order. Okay, so number one, I'm futuristic. Like that's my number one strength is I can go into the future. I think Alex Sharpin says like entrepreneurs are the few people who go into the future, create a new reality, and then like bring the rest of the world into their new reality, right? I totally botched that, but that's essentially what he says. Like I'm super futuristic. My brain is always in the future. I am strategic, right? Like I love coming up with a plan. I love coming up with a strategy. I literally like just like 10 minutes ago was like drawing like a chart for my husband to help him through like his tasks for the day and stuff. Like I'm super, super strategic. Number three, my third strength, I'm not going to remember the order of these. I think number three was communication. So this, right? Like I love coming on and doing live streams, right? And I love I love talking to people. Like it's one of my strengths. It's something that I really enjoy doing. Number four is woo. So winning others over, right? And it makes me a good salesperson. It makes me a good marketer. It makes me just a likable person, right? Winning others over is number four. I won't win everyone over, right? But woo is something that I have. It's one of my top five strengths. And my last one is positivity, which is definitely flows into all the areas of my life, right? I'm a very positive person. Okay. Some of you guys, have you dropped your top strengths? Have you guys done strength finders? Let me know. Oh, I see. Ashley said responsibility, arranger, futuristic, adaptability, and relator. Ooh, those are so good. Okay. So, like, even I'm going to bring yours up. So, Ashley, like, these are your top strengths, right? So, no matter what you're doing, no matter what job you hold, whether your role is virtual assistant or, sister or daughter or wife or whatever, right? Like, no matter what your role is, like it doesn't change any of these things. No matter, and here's where it's going to get real personal, right? No matter if you get rejected, right? So if you go do a discovery call and if you get rejected, does it change any of these things? Does it make you not responsible, not an arranger, not futuristic, not adaptable, not a relator? No, right? Like you are these things. And no matter what happens, no matter what anybody else says, no matter the rejection that you may face, no matter if you fail, right? Because we're talking about there's the fear of rejection and there's the fear of failure. No matter what, you are these things, right? And so part of dealing with rejection and knowing how to face the fear of rejection is getting really, really, really secure in just who you are as a person. Because if that becomes unshakable, then like what other people say, it can be like a factor, right? Like, okay, I can learn. Like if I do a discovery call and I'm like, oh, I totally botched that, right? Like I wasn't confident at the end. I didn't land the sale. Like I didn't make the ask or whatever, right? Like you can
Sorry,
evaluate.
could you say that again?
No, I can't say it again. I'm saying it already. I'll put my watch over here. No matter what happens in that, I can get feedback. I can, change and shift and become better. But at the end of the day, who I am as a person is worthy and is valuable, right? And it doesn't change who I am. Okay. So becoming super, super secure in your strengths, in your abilities, being like, yeah, I know who I am and I'm freaking good at these things. And no matter what anybody says, isn't going to change that, right? If I get a negative comment on this YouTube video, which you guys have seen happen, right? Like if I get a negative like YouTube comment and somebody like verbally, physically like rejects me on the interwebs, like does it change that I am futuristic and strategic and positive and good at communication and good at winning others over? Like, does it change any of those things? No, because who I am as a person is valuable and nothing will change that. Okay. So part of dealing with rejection and knowing how to handle rejection is having just that really, really secure base in who you are. Yes. We good? Okay, so I feel like that's the most important thing. That's why I got on a soapbox about it. And then we'll talk practically too. But I feel like if you don't have this foundation, like the other stuff that I'm about to say is gonna it's just gonna go right past us. Because if we don't have this firm foundation and it's like, here's who I am, and that's unshakable, and I am worthy because of these things, then the rest of it like doesn't even matter. Okay. So let's keep going. Good. Are we all following along? Are we liking this? All right. So what we talked about already, there's two types of fears. There's a fear of failure. There's the fear of rejection. We're diving into the fear of rejection today, realizing that your fear is not uncommon. Other people have the exact same fears and have been able to get to the other side of them, which means that you can too. It starts with knowing who you are, knowing your worth. And even if you fail or even if you get rejected, it does not change that you are valuable and that you are worthy as a person. Okay. So now let's get practical. Okay. Because the reality is, the reason why some of us are fearing rejection is because it's an actual possibility. Like, I'm not one of these people that's going to be like, just go out there. You're never going to have adversity. No one's going to reject you. People are going to love it. Like right now, we're building a new platform, right? If you guys don't know, we're building something. It's called Hello Savvy. It is going to be amazing. It's a freelancer platform. And one of my fears, I have a fear of rejection. I have a fear of failure with it. I'm like, what if it doesn't work? What if people hate it? And one of the responses I get a lot from people is like, "Oh no, people are going to love it. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be amazing. It's going to change the game." And like those things are nice, but I'm such a realist that I'm like, but there is a possibility that people won't like it. Like and that's actually true, right? And that's okay to acknowledge, right? Because again, it doesn't change who I am. It doesn't change my value as a person if it fails or if it gets rejected. But like the reality is that you starting a virtual assistant business, starting a freelancing business, there is a possibility that people will say no. There is a possibility that somebody won't like your pitch. There is a possibility that you will get rejected. And so knowing that that is actually a real thing that could happen, I feel like is an important thing because we can't just like pretend that it doesn't exist. Oh, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. No one's going to do that. No, somebody really might, right? So let's be prepared and already have a game plan for when it happens. So what do we do? What do we happen if like what happens if we actually get rejected, right? Like what happens if my pitches, if I am applying to job ops, if I'm doing discovery calls and people keep saying no? Doesn't change my worth as a person, but we can't actually practically get better at it, right? So let's talk about that for a second. I want to look at the comments, make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, you guys are liking this. Yay! I'm seeing my your top 5 strengths. So good. Yep. There's always that possibility. Knowing that not everyone will love you or whatever you're selling is just a fact of life. Yes. My realists in the room relate. Okay, so what to do if your pitches keep getting rejected? Number 1, ask why. Okay, I want to pause for a second. Everybody, when we're done with this live stream, what I want you to do is you can head over to YouTube, make sure you subscribe to my channel. No, but really, youtube.com/AbbyAshley. It's a really good channel. So once you head over to YouTube, after you subscribe to my channel, you should Google or search on YouTube, and I'll even show you 100 days of rejection. Okay. And this TED Talk, it's 15 minutes long. It's really, really good. And we actually watched one of his full presentations. It was like an hour-long thing that we watched on one of our development days here at the Virtual Savvy. But this 15-minute one is really, really good. And it's basically the story of this guy who, let me take it off of, yeah. So go to YouTube, look up 100 Days of Rejection. It's a story about this guy who was just crippling fear of rejection. And so he did this thing called rejection therapy, which I'm not suggesting that you do necessarily. I mean, you can if you want to. But he literally went out and tried to, like, on purpose, get rejected for 100 days. So he came up with this list of like all these ridiculous things that he was going to do, right? So like one time he went and he asked a guy if he could like kick a soccer ball around in his backyard. One time he went and asked if he could plant a flower at a guy's backyard. One time he asked somebody if he could borrow, like a stranger, if he could borrow $100. Okay. And so the whole point was to get him to get used to being rejected. And it started out as just like this, I'm going to toughen up and learn how to get rejected well and have it not affect me. But what it actually turned into is that he learned like how to actually get the thing he was asking for. So one of the examples he gives is that he goes to this guy, he literally knocks on a stranger's door and asks, "Hey, I have this flower. Can I plant it in your backyard?" And the guy's like, "No, right?" Like, no, you can't do that, you weirdo, right? And so what he does, rather than just being like, okay, thanks, and like running away, like, that didn't work, I'm scared of this, right? Is he simply asked the question, can I ask why? And the guy like kind of like put his guard down a little bit, and he's like, well, I mean, to be truthful, like I have a dog in the backyard and that dog eats everything, and like if you planted this in the backyard, my dog would eat it in like 2 seconds. However, the lady across the street, she loves flowers, you could ask her, right? And so literally just by asking the question why, like, why are you saying no? It can be a scary question to ask, but it actually can give you a lot of insight. And so in this case, it got this guy, he went over to this neighbor's house. He asked if he could plant the flower over there. And the lady's like, yeah, sure, why not? And so it literally ended up being like a referral. And so one of the things that he says in this video, and you guys, again, you can go watch the video yourselves, but a lot of times when you ask the question why, you'll realize that what is happening, the reason behind the no, a lot of times is that it was like in this case, it was the wrong audience, right? This guy wasn't going to say yes. And that's the reality for some of the pitches you guys are doing. Sometimes it takes a while to find the right audience, right? So you may be booking discovery calls with people who just, it's just not a right fit for them, right? Like this just isn't your ideal client. Maybe it never will be. It's the wrong audience. The other thing it could be is that it's the wrong time, right? Maybe this is the right type of person you'd want to be working with, but it's just not a good time for them to be hiring either you or hiring anyone, right? And so you can learn a lot literally just by asking the question, like, can I ask why this isn't a good fit for you right now? And just see what they say, right? Because I do truly believe that you can learn a lot from those interactions. And that's the whole thing, is that all of these tips we're talking about, like what to do if your pitches get rejected. It's all about like these little micro shifts that you can make to become better and better and better. Because the reality is that every time you fail or every time you get rejected, it's actually an opportunity for you to get better. get better, get better, get better. And we know this, right? We hear all the stories. We hear about like, the author of all the Harry Potter books that got rejected like all these different times. Then finally someone said yes. Like we hear all those stories, but those seem really distant. Like those are like, oh, well, those are those people, right? But no, like they're the same as us going out there, putting something scary into the world, getting rejected, but having to learn from it every time. So one of the things you can do is to ask why. The next is, again, you're going to hate this tip, but you literally can ask in your discovery calls, hey, do you mind if I record this meeting? Just for, I can send it to you afterwards. And you don't have to do this with all of your calls, right? But one of the things that you can do is actually record and then go back and watch. Oh, we all say no. But I mean, we know that we are the most critical about ourselves. And I guarantee you, it'll take a couple of those calls for you to realize, okay, here's what I need to do better next time, right? And you could send them to a trusted friend too and be like, hey, would you mind watching, minutes 22 through 24 and giving me feedback on this? If you guys have like somebody you could send it to. The the thing, so I was in speech and debate in high school. I was a huge speech geek, like all into speech and debate, right? And not so much the debate. I was more the speech part, the fun parts. So but our coach would record us and like doing our performance, and oh my gosh, it was my least favorite thing. I hated it. I hated like rewatching my performances, but it was one of the things that helped me the most because my coach could say something over and over and over, like, hey, try to shift this. But then when I saw it myself, it was like, oh yeah, I got to change that. Right. And so actually recording a few of your calls, your discovery calls, and giving yourself that self-evaluation can be super helpful as well. And again, it's doing that, making these small shifts. Another thing that I think is super helpful when it comes to, knowing what to do if your pitches are getting rejected is once you've done this a while and once you start getting some yeses, right? There is just the reality that there will probably be so many yeses to get a no. Most of us aren't getting yeses on every single call unless, again, you've really narrowed in your audience and you've really narrowed in your strategy. I do think you can get to a point where you're closing almost every sale, right? But for some of us, it may be, okay, I need to do 10 cold pitches to get one person to say yes. And I need to get 5 discovery calls for one out of 5 says yes, right? And so if you can actually start recording those metrics, right? And then try to improve on them. Okay, right now it takes me 10 pitches, whether that's, applying to a job op, a cold pitch, whatever you consider a pitch, right? A follow-up to a networking meeting, whatever you consider a pitch right now. It takes me 10 of those to get 1 call. All right, let's see if I can improve that. What if I could improve that by just a little bit and I could get 2 people to say yes, right? What can I improve in that process and make it a little bit of a game, right? Ooh, how can I get it to where every 2 out of 10 say yes? All right, well, now that I'm booking more, I've literally doubled my discovery calls. Literally, if you just do that one thing, if going from 1 out of 10 pitches says yes to 2 out of 10 pitches, you've doubled your discovery calls. So now that I've doubled my discovery calls, let me look at my discovery calls. 1 out of 5 is saying yes. Let me record myself, watch, and see what could I do to improve. Maybe I could improve that number instead of 1 out of 5 saying yes. What if 2 out of 5 said yes? Oh my gosh, I've literally doubled the amount of clients I'm getting now, right? And so these small little tweaks can make a huge difference. And I think that making it a little bit of a numbers game, like I'm not normally a numbers person, but I've slowly become one because I've learned that number one, numbers can tell a story, right? Your numbers are telling you a story on whether you're good at discovery calls. They're telling you a story on whether you're good at doing these outreaches, right? They might be telling you a story of whether you're doing any marketing at all, right? You're like, my number is 0. That means you aren't getting yourself out there, right? Your numbers tell a story. And so if you can get your numbers to start telling a story and start actually recording down how many discovery calls am I doing? How many outreaches am I doing? How many job ops am I doing? And start to improve that number and kind of gamify it a little bit, it can be a huge game changer. Okay. This is some really high level strategy that we're talking about here, but it all comes back to rejection because, again, that foundation we talked about. If you don't know, hey, here's who I am, and no matter if I'm getting rejected, like it doesn't change who I am. If you don't get that first, you're not even going to have the confidence to get out and start doing this, right? If I'm getting told 4 times no, and then only one person is saying yes out of the 4, then it's like, oh, I'm just a terrible person. I'm bad at this. I should just quit. No, no, go back to your foundation. It doesn't change who you are. Okay, and then the last tip is to just do more of what works, right? And start finding the things like once you get that person that said yes, just like you asked the people, ask why, right? Was the tip number one. Just like you ask people, hey, can I ask like why this isn't a good fit today, right? Adding that into your discovery call process. What can I ask why this isn't a good fit today? If somebody agrees, you get the contract signed, everything. You can do all that first if you want to, but then making sure that it's part of your process. Hey, can I ask you, why is it that you chose me? Like, why is it that that you decided to go with my services? That information, you guys, can be so invaluable. If you're not already collecting that from your current clients, it can be so invaluable because do more of what works, right? And so if you're noticing that, like, hey, I'm trying all these different marketing channels, I'm trying to get leads on Instagram and Facebook groups and live networking events and all this stuff, and you realize that of all of your efforts, the only people who've actually booked discovery calls and signed on to be clients are the people you met at live networking events. Like, what if you only did live networking events, right? Like, what if you just did more of what works instead of trying to put your efforts a million different places? I've talked about it a few times. The book Essentialism, so, so good. And it talks about just doing less, right? Like, let's just do less things, but do the things that we do really, really well. And I feel like that can apply to our marketing channel, of like just doing more of what works. But you need data, right? You need actual information. What is working? And so asking, like, why is it that you signed on with me? Why is it that you chose me out of all the other virtual assistants out there? Why is it that you said yes? And getting that feedback can be super, super invaluable. Okay. Are we liking this? What questions do you have? Because we covered a lot today. I feel like this was kind of a heavy topic and I threw a lot of information at you. So, what questions do you have? I'm happy to share more about my experiences dealing with rejection and fear and failure because trust me, I deal with them every single day. The difference is that I just don't let it stop me, right? Like I know who I am and I know that that's not going to change even if I do fail, even if I do get rejected, right? And so I just keep pressing forward, action over perfection. All right, let me jump to the comments and see if you guys have any questions. I'll just pop up a Q&A time up here. Okay. What was the name of the book to find your superpowers? So it's called Strength Finders. So if you just Google that, or look it up on Amazon, it's a book, and the book comes with a code. So you don't want to buy a used book because then the code would probably be used too. You want to buy a new book, and the book comes with a code. And so you go on and you take this test. It'll tell you your top 5 strengths. And I freaking love it. I've been diving into it so, 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 so much. I love it. Let's see. Oh, yeah. This is actually a good point that I didn't even bring up. Sarah says, find out why they rejected you and work it into your pitch. So if you guys go and watch that video, the 100 Days of Rejection video, if you go and watch that, one of the things that he talks about is that so he goes, I'm like, you're not even gonna have to watch the video because of what I'm saying. Okay, so he goes into a Starbucks and he asks this one of his challenge for that day that he made up his own challenges, but he goes into a Starbucks and he asks the barista, he says, hey, I was wondering if I could be a greeter, like if I could greet people at the door. And the guy was like, like, and one of the things he said is that instead of being like, oh, never mind, or like the guy's like, no, I don't think so. I'm trying to be like, okay, thanks. I'm running out the door, right? He's like, if I stay in the moment, and again, you could ask why, or what he did in this time, he said, He said, "I know, that's kind of weird, right?" And the guy was like, "Yeah, I mean, haha, it's kind of weird." And so what did it do? It validated what he was feeling and it like put it out into the air. And I think that you can do that a lot of times even with your pitches. And so one of the things that like in the Savvy system, we have a whole system for, hey, if a client says, I'm just not sure, I need to think about it, I need to whatever, we have like responses to those. So you can come into your discovery calls prepared for somebody to be like, and go ahead and you can validate some of their fears, right? Like, I know it's kind of a big investment, right? Yes, actually, that's exactly what I was thinking. Da, 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 da. Okay, well, here's how I break it down this and this and this. And then you can combat it with here's my value, right? And so I think there is something about actually knowing what is the, like, what is it that, why are they saying no? And if you already know the reasons why the people are saying no, like, you can be the one to put it out there. I know it's gonna take a lot for you to get all this together, right? Like it seems like you're a little overwhelmed on how much you'll have to do to be ready to hire me. Yes, actually, that is one of the things I'm most concerned about. Okay, so why don't we do this and have a plan? Let's just instead of you having to do a bunch on your own, why don't we just take an hour this upcoming Monday and I'll just sit on the call and do it all with you. That way you don't have to do it yourself, right? Like take whatever their biggest objections are going to be, and the only way you're going to know their objections is if you actually do those discovery calls and you ask the questions. But once you have and you know these are the most common objections I get, just put it out into in the air. Make it part of your discovery call process that you throw those things out there, right? This is how we get really, really good at discovery calls. Um, mhm. Ooh, I love this. A quote from Simone Biles. I'd rather regret the risks that didn't work out than the chances I didn't take it all. Ooh, that is so good. Oh my goodness. I love it. Um, oh, this is a good question. Do you think we're scared of rejection because the opposite may happen? We get a client, we're not ready for this. So, yeah, I actually think that that is the fear of failure, right? So, that's like rejection is like they're going to say no, or they're going to think I'm dumb, or people are going to ridicule me. Like, and then the fear of failure is like, I'm going to get somebody who says yes, and then I'm not going to be able to actually fulfill it, right? Which is a totally different topic, and maybe we should dive into that on another one. I think that a lot of the stuff that we talked about today is, becoming as prepared as you can, right? Um, not not biting off more than you can chew in the element of like not over promising. If someone's like, "Ooh, and you can do my Instagram," and you're like, "Yeah, I can totally do that," and then later you're like, "Why did I agree to that?" Right? But being honest, be like, "Hey, actually, Instagram management isn't something that I've had a lot of experience in, but I'm happy to try it." Da, da, da. It kind of like sets those realistic expectations, right? And then lastly, knowing like if you do fail, because I promise you, at some point, guys, you're going to send out an email that says hello first name, or you're going to, you're going to make that mistake at some time, and it could, your client could react really well. Like worst case scenario, your client could actually fire you for that mistake, right? But like at the end of the day, does it change who you are? Does it change your worth? Does it change your value? No, right? And that's why that foundation is so important for any of these. Um Yeah. I feel like on Insta, there's a stigma to the "Hey girl" message. I try to not cold message right away. So how do you first reach out without seeming too salesy? So, yeah, cold outreach is a super sensitive topic, and I'm not going to dive into it entirely. It's one of the things that we teach on like in our course of how to do cold outreach really, really well. So for a lot of us, we'd rather start with like networking events and um like responding to job opportunities, freelancing sites like Hello Savvy. There's a lot of other ways to get clients other than cold network or cold outreach. I just kind of use that one as an example. I think cold outreach works best with a value first approach. So, yeah, I can't go into all of it today and teach the ins and outs of how to do cold outreach, but that might be a good idea for a future video. Um, Thank you so much for this. It's exactly what I needed to hear. Fear can be crippling. I'm starting a business that provides admin support for mental health providers. That's amazing, Dana. I've been working on it for a while. I can't seem to get things going. What's the best way for me to get over the anxiety about having every little thing in place before I get my next client? So yeah, that's I used to say there's three fears: fear of failure, rejection, and perfection, like not being perfect. But then I realized that the fear of perfection is usually rooted in fear of failure or fear of rejection. So I was like, I'm going to group it into those two. So I think that having a step by step process is number one, right? So all the things to do can be really overwhelming. So if you haven't downloaded our checklist, the virtualsavvy.com/checklist, if you haven't downloaded that checklist yet, that's really nice because it's just a step. Okay, what do I need to do? Boom, 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 boom. Like it makes it more manageable. So I think that that's one of the things that you can do. My one of my former coaches used to say the best way to fight overwhelm is with a plan, and I totally believe that. I love a good plan, and it helps me to fight my overwhelm. It's like, oh, okay, I just have to do these things, right? And I just have to focus on one at a time. And then there's the action over perfection mentality behind it, which is really hard too. So one of the things that I think helps, like I'm super practical, by the way, it's probably my high strategy strength. But one of the things that I'll do to fight that perfection is deadlines and accountability. So let's say one of the things that you're stressing about. So you're saying having every little thing in place before I get my next client. You do need to have some things in place, right? So that's where the checklist comes in handy. But let's say you're like, okay, I need to choose a business name. What I need you to do is set a deadline. So you can say, hey, by this Friday, I'm going to choose my business name and my brand colors. And whatever I come up with by Friday, that's what I'm choosing. Like, done. Like, set a deadline for yourself so you know by this date and time, I'm going to have this decided. And when you do that, another thing you can do is have accountability in place. So let somebody know that you've made that like deadline for yourself so that they can help keep you accountable as well. Yes. Oh, and we have a good YouTube video on how to market yourself without sounding salesy. Yes. So good. Awesome. And there's that checklist as well. Thank you guys so much. This was super fun. I loved diving into topics like this. So I appreciate you guys all joining me, and go check out those additional resources. And if you are looking for that step-by-step guide on how to launch your own virtual assistant business, you can grab that here, thevirtualsavvy.com/checklist. All right. Thank you guys so much. I hope that you have an awesome rest of the day.